Hello everyone, happy International Youth Day. My name is Itie. I'm the editor of Matters Naija. Thank you so much for joining us in our very special commemoration of the event, and we're having a virtual panel discussion looking at SRHR and how young people can take action. International Youth Day is observed across the world, and it's a United Nations observance, and it was only fit that seeing the work that we do as Love Matters, we also have a conversation around our core themes and how we can get more young people involved in the work that we're doing. I have a very interesting panel right here with me today. And I would like to introduce them, but I think my introductions will not do them any justice. So I would like them to introduce themselves. I will start with my colleague, Ema-Olori. So Emma, please, you have the floor.
Hi, thank you very much, Harry, and good afternoon to everyone, and happy International Youth Day. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ema-Olori, and I moderate the social space for Love Matters Naija on Facebook. It's an interesting place to really talk to young people and maybe not so young people about a lot of things regarding their sexual rights, love, health, relationships, and progressing onwards from that. Moderating those spaces gives me the opportunity to be here today to talk about what we really focus on our platform, and you get to learn more about that as the discussion proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Emma. We have Franklin up next. Franklin Ugobude.
Hi guys, my name is Franklin. I currently work as the head of growth and marketing at Wallet Africa. I also currently sit on the board for RNW Media. And on the other side, I help out with media and communications at the content workshop. I'm very excited to be here and to just generally discuss with all the interesting people on this panel.
Thank you very much, Franklin. We have Opeyemi next. Hi, Opeyemi, are you there? Hi,
everyone. My name is Opeyemi Oladunjoye. I'm a medical doctor, and presently I work with the coronavirus response team in Lagos State. I also am a social advocate and an SRHR advocate, and I am a volunteer with the Stand to End Rape Initiative. I also volunteer with the Shake Africa Initiative, and my major work in advocacy is centered on women and especially teenagers and young women who are in their reproductive ages. I also have interest in other fields and experience in other fields, but for advocacy, those are the things I really center on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Opeyemi, for that introduction. First of all, I want to just say thank you for the work that you're doing with the COVID-19 response. I'm sure it's been a very interesting time for us in our history right now, so thank you. We have Williams Rashidi. Rashidi, I don't know if Rashidi was here earlier on. Rashidi is the Executive Director for Equality Triangle Initiative. Rashidi is currently unavailable, so we'll just start the discussion, and then when he comes through, we will introduce him and the work that he does. So we're just going to go straight to the conversation. It's International Youth Day, and we're discussing our theme or our topic for today's observance is the importance of youth-focused advocacy to promote SRHR for young people in Nigeria. And I know that a lot of people, especially a lot of our audience, people are wondering, what is SRHR? What does SRHR mean? And how does it affect me as a young person? So I mean, we're going to start with Emma. Emma, if you could just break down what SRHR is for some of our audience who's watching right now live on Facebook.
Great, I can definitely do that. Sexual and reproductive health rights, really that's what it is. For those who are not very familiar with, the expanded terminology. It's sexual and reproductive health rights, and has really been in existence over 20 years now. It is an umbrella for various issues that affect men and women alike. It definitely represents separate areas, though, even though it affects men and women. Areas such as sexual health, sexual rights, reproductive health, and reproductive rights. I can do a quick rundown for each category that it represents. For sexual health, for instance, it really encapsulates the physical, that's your physical, your mental and social well-being in terms of your sexuality, which would be safety from sexual illnesses and sexual violence. Sexual rights is the ability to decide on your own about sexuality, being able to express yourself sexually by making your own informed decision about partners that you want to be with, your privacy, and your pleasure. Reproductive health really sort of breaks down and ensures that you have a healthy reproductive system. And women have healthy pregnancies, men have healthy reproductive lifestyles through access to healthcare, to medication, and to the knowledge of the existence of these healthcare facilities and or healthcare tools to enable you have a healthy reproductive life. And then finally, for reproductive rights, this really includes your right to decide if and when to have children. People should really be able to plan and make a well-informed decision about having children, how they want to, when they want to. And even though this is not available to all people, either due to limited education, and that would be the limited knowledge of this right, and family planning tools. And this varies from countries to communities to just, single individuals who don't have that knowledge, which is the reason why advocacy for the, knowledge about these tools, the education of how to, when to, and who to go to regarding these areas under sexual and reproductive health rights is very crucial.
Okay.
That's it in a nutshell.
Thank you very much, Emma. A very, very concise definition of what SRHR means, that's sexual and reproductive health rights. Frank, I'm going to move on to you, and I want to ask you, why do you think it's important for young people to lead advocacy efforts when it comes to sexual and reproductive health rights?
Okay. So generally, there's a popular quote to an extent that flies around the internet when we have conversations. And I remember, like, it goes something like, we did not inherit like the silence of our fathers and our mothers and everybody that comes after our world that came before us. And I think it's very essential that young people lead advocacy efforts, because just simply for awareness, we are coming into, or we are sort of like a generation that's not silent about the issues we have. And, it's only when we actually talk about these things that, like the other people who are probably ignorant about these things, or people who actually didn't know it was like. So, like, I think one of the interesting ways I'm going to put this is watching I May Destroy You. I May Destroy You, by the way, is a HBO show. And it was so interesting to see that people didn't know they were being harassed, but they were actually being harassed. And so I think in a good way, young people being at the forefront or at the center of advocacy efforts just brings into place awareness. Because you see people that look like you see people that can relate to the issues you're having, you see people who are telling or who are saying it as it is. I also think in a way, it also brings into perspective the idea that, oh, you know, it's sort of, when you talk about like relatability, again, it falls back to everything, because I can see someone who relates to, you don't have like older people, or well, much older people who are coming to tell you things, and they are like, you know, this is an older people problem, or this is a problem that would, they would always, oh, well, it's limited to them. But in this way, you're seeing yourself represented on the bigger screen or on the larger screen. And I think for the most, it's just helps you understand that you're not alone in whatever it is, and then it just generally helps like for awareness, and then bringing like stories, or bringing like I'm trying to find the right word, but just bringing all of this to like the forefront of sort of like the limelight. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, Franklin, for your contribution. Very, very, very important points raised there. I want to ask you, Opeyemi, now. We've talked about how young people need to just be in these spaces and leading these conversations. Now, I want to ask you, what are the gaps that you have noticed in SRHR advocacy and how it affects young people?
Okay, so there are a number of gaps that I have noticed, and I think that they are multifaceted. They go from the government aspect to the organizational aspect, and then also to the public aspect. And I think some of these things are the things that really affect how SRHR impacts young people in our environment. So things like government participation, I think that there is poor political will, especially in Nigeria, when it comes to issues like this. Unfortunately, SRHR isn't seen as healthcare. It is not seen as human rights, and that's the mistake people keep making. Sexual rights are very important. Sexual health is very, very important. It is an important part of healthcare, because really a person who is healthy means that they have every aspect of their lives in a good shape, means that they have a good well-being. And there is no way you can have a person existing without the reproductive side of their lives. They have to have that intact for them to have good well-being also. So I think that we need to start recognizing that healthcare includes sexual health, includes reproductive health. So there has to be improved political will. There has to also be improved public support. The people in the advocacy space are not doing the work alone. They are doing the work for themselves and for the people that are in public. They are also doing the work for the government, because really, any problem that the society has will fall on the shoulders of the government to solve. So if people in the advocacy space are doing this work, then government needs to be able to support them, needs to be able to support all of us. The people, the public that also benefit from it like we do, also have to be able to support us. Other things I have noticed is transmission of advocacy into active, I don't want to say impact, because advocacy itself is impact, but also like activity. You know how advocacy, we stay and we talk about things that affect us, but going into protest, going into policy making, going into how it actually affects people's lives, going away from just speaking about these things and coming together and saying, look, this should be better, this should be considered like this and not like this, going into actively making laws that will say, okay, you are not allowed to do this, going into actually putting down our feet and saying, this affects us and we want it to change. I think that those are very important steps that that still have gaps, things we've not been able to fill. And then going from that, I think that we also need to transmit these things into long-term measures, where it's not only about advocacy, because we will advocate, we will continue to advocate, but we also want to see results, where in the long term, we don't need to keep advocating for certain things because those measures are already in place to cater for them. So those are the gaps that I see. And another gap that I really want to mention that I think is very important is that SRHR is not only for women. Many people, public perception, people seem to think that SRHR is for women by women alone or by feminists alone. And that is not how it should be. That's a gap that I also see that affects the advocacy space. And I think that people should understand that there are many issues that concern both men and women, young people, older people. Everybody has a reproductive part of their life, and it's very important to consider those too. Thank you.
Yeah, that very, very, very important point over there. And I think it's one of the reasons why we do what we do at Love Matters, and we try to, our goal is to help people make informed choices, help young people make informed choices, and let them know that whatever gender identity you take on yourself, you know, there is specific SRHR needs that you require as a human being, that you're entitled to, and that you should be able to make informed choices. Thank you so much, Opeyemi, for your contribution. That was really, really, really impactful. Rashidi, you work well in the LGBT movement. I want to ask, how would you describe the progress the LGBT movement has made in digital advocacy, especially by young people? Rashidi? I think we're having like a slight challenge with delay over there. I'll just go over to Emma, and then when Rashidi joins, I will ask him the question again. But Emma, doing hands-on digital advocacy with the Love Matters Naija inbox, and having to always respond to people when they come with their SRHR, how does messaging come into play when you engage with young people?
That's an interesting question. I think off the bat, what's most important is to be relatable, first of all. People don't want to feel that you're talking at them, but you're talking to them. And that really includes listening first and understanding the situation. So being relatable on our side is using data, social listening, and our extensive reach as, Love Matters Naija in the engagement process with people. And that's really where it starts. Because everyone doesn't have the same level of access to information. And so filling this gap through our messaging on the platform starts with, the introduction of the knowledge. Introduction of the knowledge of your sexual rights, of your reproductive rights, then creating a safe space where, people can discuss, talk about these issues as it affects them without the fear that they'll be judged, without the fear that, they'll be mocked or, they'll be disregarded or disrespected. And, discussing these issues around sexual and reproductive health. Then also then expanding and broadening the knowledge to close the gap in a very contributive manner. So while this happens on the front end and on the back end, we really focus on being able to guide them into making their own informed decisions, as opposed to telling them what to do. So it's not a matter of, oh, go do this or go do that because you have this problem. It's more, let's listen to your thought process. Let's guide your thought process to understanding all of the parameters that, are involved in being aware of your sexual rights, being aware of your reproductive rights. And when you assess them, you can come to an informed decision for yourself. There's power in that. And so we're giving the power to them to say, now that you know this, how are you going to apply it into making better decisions and doing, sort of redirecting the focus on how your life is going. So this shapes them, and we're able to measure, our achievements in many different ways. But, one particular way is really asking for feedback. How does this affect you, and how have you applied it? And the kinds of positive responses that we get really lets us know firsthand from the audience who come inbox to say, this is how this has improved, my life. This is how I've been able to make better decisions about my sexual health, my reproductive health, and this is how I can then tell other people about it. So that in itself is already one level of advocacy that is being achieved. They're now, going and telling others of the knowledge that they have, sharing the tools that they have been provided with in order to, be able to make informed decisions. So also partnering with several different agencies, gives us the benefit of being able to make referral services to people who need them. Referral services, for instance, to reproductive health agencies, and to counseling agencies that are able to talk to people who have been through the impacts of sexual violence, sexual abuse, mental abuse, in relationships and in things that affect their love lives. And all of these contribute to that expansion of, the advocacy that we start with in Box, and then, onto our partners to make it a lot more extensive, working with government and other international agencies.
So basically being a bridge between the needs of young people, and then taking those needs and those requirements and giving it and passing it on to organizations on the ground who are actually doing work.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Frank. We're talking about young people. It's International Youth Day, and the hashtag is Youth for Global Action. We want to see more young people doing work in advocacy spaces, taking the lead, taking charge, because young people the world has a lot more a vibrant young population. So my question is, what is the importance of having youth leaders start to take the lead in advocacy spaces when it comes to SRHR?
Okay, so circling back to like a lot of things that have actually been said during the course of this conversation, and following up with what I said earlier, I feel like it's there are a lot of young people in the world, and a lot of like the mindset has actually been, would I say, tainted by what we already kind of knew before now. And I think, again, that the importance of having young leaders in this position is some level of awareness and some level of inclusion and, appropriate representation, as the case is. And because I know, I remember like there was a kind of way I felt seeing Malala, irrelevant to the point of this conversation now, but I know I felt in some type of way, I didn't know her, but I just felt like, I could relate to part of what she was saying. She was talking about something entirely different at the point, but I could just, this is a young person coming up on the big screen to like sort of voice what she was going through at the point. And so having more young people would bring about, some level of would I say, some level of active participation as well, because I feel like there's, more young people are taking up like this advocacy roles and being more involved in it. But I also feel like there's still a large group of people who are just there on the sidelines and, we're just watching. But I feel like with more representation, with more people in this field, you are more likely to, want to actually participate, because you can see actually that, these are people that look like me, that feel like me. It all boils down to like the global language of inclusion and representation in the long run. And I feel like, outside that, I feel young people are very innovative, and to a very large extent, we actually have like, we understand the thing with technology, and we actually know how to advance each of these things into our work and see how we can actually use these platforms. A very big example is what we do here at Love Matters, because it's as simple as just changing the perspective of people via Facebook. Facebook connects with audiences, and Love Matters is actually using this as a platform to push for understanding of SRHR, right? Brings me back to what Emma had said about when people reaching out to people or reaching out to Love Matters on Facebook, and just understanding that, there's someone who looks like me and feels like me on the other side, is trying to understand what exactly I'm saying. I think in the long run, young people are more receptive for change. because we're tired of like living in silence and living like the old way things have always been. And so we're just more likely to understand, we're more likely to feel things, and we're more likely to just be more innovative and lead to like a more sustainable dialogue, as the case may be, and change things. I won't swear because this is like, but yeah, change things and just change the narrative of how things go. Really.
Okay, thank you so much, Frank. And you made a very good point there as regards how, young people understand the digital methods, the digital tools needed for advocacy, especially in digital spaces. And this leads me to my question to you, Opeyemi. We have seen young people engage on SRHR issues, whether it's domestic violence, whether it's sexual abuse, sexual harassment. They've taken the lead online, and they have done advocacy. What are some of the wins that you would say you're proud of, and in what ways can we improve on the things that maybe we got wrong when we went through those advocacy processes?
Okay, so I think that the journey hasn't gone very far, but I think in the time we've recorded a number of wins. I particularly take pride in the wins that we've seen, because every time I go online and I see, nowadays, there's a thing I do where I don't bother having like back and forths anymore. There was a time when I used to do that a lot, and then I got really exhausted. But nowadays, I notice that whenever I go online and there's someone being a rape apologist, or there's someone saying some nonsense about how sexual abuse is okay, I see people responding to that person. And I see people calling that person out, setting them straight. And these are not the usual faces that I see. These are not the usual handles that I see. Like, and honestly, sometimes I get surprised and I'm like, oh, wow. Because it tells me that awareness is really happening. Like, we are really making impact when it comes to awareness. And it's not just social media. Sometimes, like even on the streets, around me, at home, in public, anywhere, something comes up and then someone responds to them. And in my mind, I start to feel like, oh, I'm no longer alone. Honestly, that's how it feels nowadays. I feel like, okay, people are really getting to understand that these things are wrong, or some of these things are not permissible. And for me, that's the major win, because if it's coming up every day like that with people who are not in the forefront, then it means that it's really spreading. And that way, like, it means that when you have different soldiers in different places in the society, then it means that your work will be done faster. It means that all of us are actually participating in the work. Another thing that I regard as a win, like Emma said earlier, is partnership. I like the fact that it's easier now to do referrals. Like, you find that different organizations are coming together and having things together, ensuring that things don't go unnoticed. And it is very important, like, there are certain things that will come up. For example, if someone comes to me and they need a certain service, sexual abuse service, or maybe menstrual problems, I easily have centers I can refer them to. Those are some of the wins for me. There are more organizations in this space. There's broadening of the aspects that we're entering into, even with LGBT cases. Someone came up a few days or weeks ago and was like, oh, she needs somewhere she can refer someone who had issues. And I could easily refer them to, I think, Tier Nigeria. And it means that the fact that there are these organizations in these other, in quotes, taboo spaces, like coming up to help young people, makes me really happy, because at the end of the day, everybody needs someone to go to for help. Another thing that makes me happy is that we see our advocacy translating into policy making. For example, the recent domestication of the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act in Bauchi, that really made me happy. And then the Sex for Grades video that eventually shook everywhere. It felt like everybody heard about it. And next thing, it was in Senate and they were arguing about, okay, we should make this legal. And now there's a real conversation about it that is really leading to long-term measures being put in place to ensure that these things stop. Those are the wins for me. The fact that people people in the general public, people that we see as ordinary people, people that we don't even know are being affected every day by these things. And we know that we are making this space and places around us safer for people in general. Those are the wins for me. Things that I will like to see improvement on include partnerships and coalitions. I will like to see much more partnerships in this space. I would like to see more advocacy in some spaces. For example, okay, I think I'll mention them maybe later, talk about them really, but for example, things like abortion. I would like to see more advocacy in spaces like that. Say birth control, I would like to see that. I will also like to see improvements in recognizing that everybody deserves rights, everybody has rights. As advocates, we are not allowed to we of all people are not allowed to challenge other people's rights or take their rights away. It is always very important for us to understand that, look, this person might not be on my side, but at the end of the day, it's not about who is on your side or not when it comes to human rights. Everyone has human rights, and people might not play the same politics that you play, because the truth is we all advocate in different ways. But it doesn't mean that their advocacy is not valid, or it doesn't mean that their healthcare or their reproductive rights are not valid. It's always very important for me to improve, to emphasize that. And I think I would like to see more openness in that aspect. I would like to see people more tolerant of other people. I'm not saying that you have to take on all the fights. No, I'm not saying that you have to advocate for every single thing. I'm just saying that when you see other people advocating for some things, maybe that's not the time to say no, they're infringing on my own rights, when what they are really doing is fighting for their own rights. If it becomes an infringement, yes, then we can speak against that. But when it's just them trying to ensure that they are fighting for their own survival, I think it's very vital for us to remember that everyone at the end of the day deserves that right to survive. I would also like to see more funding. So this is probably like going to the public. Please, I would like to see improvements in donations to organizations in this space. It is very important. Without funding, progress will be made, but it won't be as drastic as what we would really like to see. So those are the things I want to say.
Thank you so much, Opeyemi. Very valid points there. And, some of you with the wins, the sexual harassment bill, that's like a huge win, all coming off the offshoot of the Sex for Great video. Rashidi, I want to ask you about the LGBT community and just how young people in that space are using digital advocacy. Recently, we saw that even Nigerian singer Simi had an issue and was called out for homophobia, and she had to recant her statements and apologize. So there are these small wins in that community. Can you just talk to us about what the work that is being done in the LGBT community when it comes to digital advocacy, especially by young people? Hi, Rashidi, I think you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, can you hear me, please?
We can hear you now, thank you.
Yeah. So I think that so far so good. The LGBT movement in Nigeria has come of age.
One second, and I think one thing. Can you adjust your camera just a little bit so they can see your face clearly?
Yeah, if you can hear me.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah. So I'm saying that so far so good. I think the movement and community in Nigeria, the LGBT movement and community in Nigeria has come of age. It has grown in terms of capacity, in terms of strength, and in terms of visibility. And I think what has pushed this is the fact that, there have been penetration of mobile internet, and people have news, information on the go. So that era where you hear that, LGBT people don't exist in Nigeria is long gone. In fact, that rhetoric is dead right now. If anyone used that, even the baby that is born today will probably give the person a nod and say, "Oh God, what are you talking about? I see these people on the internet every day." So I think the digital advocacy, the digital space has changed the way we have advocacy. It has changed the way people now perceive, LGBT community there are still the lot of meat and stew, but that is also because the visibility that this has brought, on people have actually made people begin to biases, their own executive or the chief operating officer of what is it called, Apple is gay, then what are we talking about? And all that kind of thing. So I do think that the digital space has enhanced our advocacy for, sexual reproductive health and rights, including those of LGBTI persons, which are human rights for everyone. And everyone can see that, LGBT persons are human beings, they deserve rights, and they shouldn't be treated in any other way less. Now, let's bring that back to the recent conversation around, Simi issuing an apology, to the LGBT community. I think it's also a win for how our visibility and our openness on the digital space have actually begun to shut up, people and say, see, if you want to move, you need to bury your homophobia. If you don't understand things, you should probably ask questions and seek to increase your knowledge rather than coming out to, just condemn anyone and, make your homophobia blatant thereabout. On the other hand, too, is the fact that, these issues, the increase in the digital space and all that has also, made very visible the powers that we have as a community of same gender loving person and as a community of young people, that we are the economic powerhouse of any nation thereabout. And so if you're going to be saying, things that are derogatory, things that dehumanize, and things that makes it possible for human rights violation, to persist on grounds of perceived or real sexual orientation or gender identity, then you need to be held accountable for your views. And I think that is the power that we are unleashing, across the world right now, and even in Nigeria, that people begin to see us not just as people that are clamoring, for, how do I call it right now, for rights alone, but we are clamoring for, a whole lot of other things. And that these rights are socioeconomic in nature, they are political in nature, and we need all these things to, to ensure that, human rights is protected for everyone, especially sexual reproductive health rights for young people who identify as LGBT. So on that grounds, I think Simi's apology was actually based on the fact that we have created a very visible movement, that you would not just say anything and then think it's going to go, under the bushel, that you're going to be held accountable for every, homophobia that you spill, and for every human rights violation you commit in the name of, someone's perceived or real sexual orientation or gender identity. And I think that is about the power. And if we are going to change the dynamics of, human rights in this country, we need to first realize that as a constituency, we have the power to effect the change that we want. And that power begins by making sure that we are visible, our voices are heard when it comes to certain issues such as this. And I think that was one issue, an apology to the LGBTI community. And I think that's a win for us, that, people are now beginning to take us very serious as a movement.
But Rashidi, you made very valid points, but I want to also ask about the players in the movement who are visible, the young people who are active, who are taking these stands and making these statements. What is the plan for security, for these people? What are we doing to make sure that they are safe, from harm, considering that we still live in a very homophobic society?
So I think that what we need to what we need to factor into consideration here is that security, we cannot program for security for everyone because of the context in which we live in. So people first must understand the fact that, when I come out and when I become very visible, it comes with some sort of security implications. So what do I do to ensure that, my safety and security is intact, while my visibility is also not, lowered at any point in time? So I think it would cut across, different sectors. What you can do as an individual to ensure your security and safety is not jeopardized. What organizations organizations that are working with, these populations can also do to ensure, security at a community and at an organizational level thereabout. I don't think there is any particular, how do I call it, blueprint that would, that I would say this is what you need to do. But at least people must first understand the fact that, see, we live in a context that is very brutal. And so in that context, I would take into consideration the fact of, how, where I go, who is threatening me. Information on myself as a person, and who I can provide that information to at an organizational level that can help me bolster my security. And this is why I say, for individuals, it's going to be something they have to factor themselves. They have to come to realization that, see, I got to be visible, and at the same time, I have to talk about my safety and security. So it's something that people have to do. At an organizational level, we can help to say, hey, this is what you can do to ensure that, your safety and security is not jeopardized. Probably if you're doing a lot of digital space activism around this kind of issue, you want to ensure that your device is encrypted. You want to ensure that you're not using, you're not logging into your emails or any other channel of communication from untrusted devices. You want to know who exactly has access to your, mobile telecommunication gadgets. You want to know who even has access, to your own privacy, your house, and all those kind of things. So these things, have to be designed by the individual, so they know that, okay, this is my level of risk as a person who is open about his or her sexual orientation. And these are the steps I'm going to take, to ensure that, my safety and security is not jeopardized at any point. So I think it begins with the individual, that, they have, a risk analysis of saying, okay, what is it called? I do a lot of digital rights advocacy around this issue, so I need to have encrypted system. All my mobile gadget needs to be encrypted. I need to know who have access to my mobile communication and that kind of thing. If I do a lot of physical advocacy thereabout, then I need to know who has access to my office, who has access to my house, who is monitoring my movement, and all that kind of thing. So I don't think, there is any one particular way to sort of address the continue to engage. I think that safety and security would become a factor for us to consider, especially as our advocacy go online right now. So it's going to be, freedom of information and what is it called? Freedom of information, freedom of expression, and all that kind of thing, and how the digital rights can, impact on that in terms of, people cyberbullying you, and, you having death or, safety and security threats, via the media and all that. And I think the best thing then to do would be to work with an organization who does this on a very professional level to say, I received this threat on so and so issue, and I think we need to act. Again, this is where we tell people, once you receive this threat, please don't keep them to yourself. Look for the nearest organization that is working with this population, and report that kind of threat to them. Because the more data we have on, the threats that people face as a result of their sexual orientation or gender identity or even sexuality expression, the more we are able to then say, this is the kind of safety and security measures that we need to put in place.
Okay, thank you very much, Rashidi. You make very valid points, and I think this is even also to just people who not just for the people in the LGBT advocacy, but people just generally who do work in SRHR spaces, and even also to the point that Opeyemi was making, and even Emma was making about collaboration and the importance of us having to work together, so that everything that we need, security. Is in place. We're rounding up our conversation now, but I want to ask a few final questions. Frank, I know you do a lot of work with the consent workshop. I'm curious to know what your experience has been like there, and what you have learned from just being there and being working on SRHR rights.
Okay, so I think to summarize the whole thing, I think working with the consent workshop, I've been there for maybe a little over a year. And I think the long and short of it is just, there's still room for more work. and more work and more work and more work. So the consent workshop currently goes into schools and has conversations with young people about consent. And then we also have like university chapters, and then we also do some stuff on the digital space as well. And I think one of the most interesting things that I have realized in this being in this position over like the past couple of years is that there are still a lot of people who do not understand the simplest things that you and I get about consent and sexual rights. It's always so baffling when I meet. I mean, so we encounter them every now and then on Twitter. You think it's just a social media space conversation, or this is just a warped ideology that people have. But then wait till you go into like schools and you see younger people, or younger children who come up and are like pretty much have like the same mindset. And it's always so funny when they do. Well, I don't know if funny is the word exactly, but it's like I feel some type of way because I'm like, I always had the idea that, after like maybe our generation, like the upcoming ones are probably going to be better than us. But so yeah, like I feel like there's still room for more work. There's still room for a lot to be done. We need to start having these conversations as early as possible. And I am hoping that, considering the fact that a lot of us young people now are like sort of older and going into this space where people are having children, I'm hoping that we do not make the same mistakes. Because for a lot of us, we had to unlearn some of the things we actually knew. And so I'm hoping that we find it, we make it a point of to teach our own children early enough. I'll pick an encounter we had like a while back. So prior to like coronavirus, my work primarily has me working on communication. So more often than not, I'm behind the screens. But I decided to go out for one of the school outreaches once, and we went there, and it was just really funny how young children in their senior, like I think SS2, SS3, what they thought about like consent and what they thought it was. We had people who were basically slut shaming. So we do this not funny. We do this exercise where we have so we show young people pictures of celebrities. So we show them a picture of a celebrity who's maybe fully clothed, walking on the street, and we ask them to tell them or give us words, what they think about this person. And for people who are all decently clothed, you have like really nice words to describe them. So you have nice, good, and then you have pictures of maybe performances, celebrities in performances, female celebrities in performances. You have like all sorts of words that have been trained. You bring up the male celebrities in performance as well, and it's another entirely different ball game. So I think generally that there is still room for more work to be done. I think that's what I've learned in my work with the content workshop, and it's never too late. It's never too. We need to constantly just keep talking about these things. Awareness is very, very good. I'm going to circle back to what Opeyemi had said, like when she joined the conversation, because she was like, there was sort of like a shift. She started, she realized over time that people started the people who would normally come up and spew wrong facts were the people who were actually now taking charge of this conversation. I feel like that's one of the main things, that awareness, or constantly exposing people to the hard facts, or this is what it is. I should have rights to enjoy a comprehensive sexuality education. I should have right to freedom of thought. I should be able to say no when I want to say no. So I feel like constantly drumming this, it might seem a bit repetitive, but if there's anything I've learned in my work or in, what I have seen so far, we need to just keep talking and having these conversations, because I think that's like the best way to go about this.
Okay, thank you very much, Franklin. Opeyemi, as a healthcare professional who sees how advocacy helps young people, what areas would you like to see us focus on? I know you talked about, contraceptives and birth control, but are there other areas you feel like we need to shine the light on? And what final lessons can you share with us on just the work that you do and your experience so far?
So there are a number of areas that I would like to see more work on. When it comes to SRHR advocacy, it feels like the government in particular focuses on maternal health and maybe some contraception. Thankfully, there's been increase of advocacy in the sexual abuse space, but I would like to see more, because really it's never enough. With the number of cases that we have worldwide, I don't think that we can have enough advocacy. Maybe I should rephrase that. I don't think that we can have too much advocacy in the sexual abuse space. Then another area that I think is very important, especially in Nigeria, is abortion. People forget that abortion is actually a woman's right. Abortion is not just about morality, about whether women should get to keep their babies or not. Abortion is actually a sexual right, a reproductive right that women should have, that women are entitled to. Women should have the right to say, look, I don't want to keep this baby, or look, I want to have this baby. That is a right that women have, and that is the right that women should be able to use. Unfortunately, we're in Nigeria where abortion is illegal, and for that reason, you find that a lot of people do not want to advocate for it because there's this hush-hush advocacy when it comes to abortion. A lot of us believe that, yes, women should have the choice to choose to abort babies if they want to, but I've not really seen active advocacy. And I wouldn't say I blame anybody for that, really. But it's just with things like this, just like how it is with LGBT, because of the criminalization, it feels like if you speak out too much about it, certain agencies or certain quarters are going to look at you and target you. So I won't blame anybody for not actively saying, I'm going to take this on as an organization or as an individual. But that is one area I think that I would like to see a lot of focus on. Another area I would like to see is birth control. Yes, birth control and contraception is focused on by the government, but honestly, I don't think that it is enough at all. There are a lot of women who still do not have access to proper birth control. Even in Lagos State is one of the places where it's maybe the most exposed community in Nigeria. And yet, there are many women who don't even know that contraceptives are available at family planning clinics. There are many people who don't know that family planning clinics actually exist. There are many people who don't even know the clinics around them. And then there are clinics, it's not like the clinics are very popular anyway. So it's not like they are readily available and people are not going. It's that they are not very readily available. It's that people are not aware also. And it's that people don't understand that there are more contraceptives that I should be able to explore, that I can explore aside from condoms. And that's why one of the things I enjoy, one of the wins for me that I didn't mention earlier, is that when it comes to birth control, people are starting to say, look, it shouldn't be on the woman only. Men should also have birth control that they can use, because the burden being on the woman only means that it's one-sided, and it means that we are obviously not exploring the full potentials that we can have access to. I will also like to see more focus on female genital mutilation. People think it's a northern problem, but the truth is that there are so many cases in the south also. So that is another space I would like to see. I would like to see more work done when it comes to child marriage. It might not seem like a sexual problem, but at the end of the day, it is really a sexual problem. It is not just only about empowering people when it comes to finances or education. Child marriage also affects reproductive systems of people, both men and women. And I would like to see a lot of focus too on adolescent health. I think that's an area where there's been very little focus on, especially in Nigeria. People don't regard young people in Nigeria as human beings. They just regard them as tools for adults that can be spoken to or can be told to do anything. But adolescents are people. Adolescents have health issues that pertain to them only as a specific group. So I think that there should be facilities that can cater to them as people that have health rights. And that will also encompass teenage pregnancies, because that is actually very common, especially in our society. It is very common to see teenage pregnancies, but we don't know. We're not really looking at how does this affect these people's reproductive health. We look at how it affects their lives when it comes to education. Okay, maybe a girl gets pregnant and then she stops going to school after a while. But we don't look at how eventually, is this girl, if she gets pregnant too much, she's likely going to have VVF. Or how is it going to affect our reproductive system later? And when you look at it, all of these things work hand in hand, because if adolescents actually had their own clinics, or if they had health services that catered to them, they would be able to understand or be able to know that there are contraceptives that adolescents can use to prevent this. The fact is, we will not be able to stop people from having sex. That will always happen. People will have sex, people will get pregnant. So how can we stop all of this? Is by providing the right channels for people of all ages to be able to go to. Another area I would like to see focus on is men issues. So like I said earlier, I think that a lot of people think that SRHR is for women by women only, but there are many health issues that affect men also, and I would like to see focus on those issues, specifically by men, because it feels like men only remember that they have sexual health issues when women's sexual health issues come up. So this is like a challenge. So I was like, more men create their own organizations to say, look, men have sexual health issues and we want to fight for them. So the other question about my experience, presently, I volunteer with Stand to End Rape Initiative, and I work as a research volunteer. And just like Ugo's work in the concept workshop, I do more background work. But sometimes I also am able to connect with people, with survivors, to link them up with like the mental or psychosocial team. Or also sometimes we go for outreaches, and I've been able to, in one of the classes, I've been able to teach the women to take classes and counsel them on consent and all of that. And what my experience has been so far is that, like Ugo said, the work cannot be overemphasized. It can never be enough. We have to keep doing more work. We have to keep partnering with people. Thankfully, Stand to End Rape is an organization that is very well structured and is doing a lot of work, achieving a lot of things, because although there are many people that need our services, but we are still able to manage well the people that we are able to reach. And I'm also thankful because it's an organization that caters to even volunteers. So you know that you're not alone. There's always a support system there for you. So for me, I think I've had a good journey, very good journey. I've been with Stand to End Rape for a bit over a year. And I've had a very good journey, both in awareness, both in impact, both in dealing with survivors, and then both with dealing with, and also with dealing with the team. I also work with Shake Africa Initiative. Shake Africa Initiative is still in like foundation stages, and then we're moving to implementation stage very soon. And what Shake Africa Initiative does is that we focus on birth control and contraceptive, especially for women. We're looking to incorporate the teenage pregnancies aspect, but that will be after a while. But what we do mainly is the contraceptive and the access to birth control for women, and especially young women in universities and all, because I think that is a part that is really neglected, that many people don't have places that they can readily go to, except maybe the government base. And then you find young women telling you all the time, oh, I went to this clinic to get this, and the nurse there was telling me this, that is an area where I think that we need to improve on a lot, because the only access people should have to contraceptives shouldn't be people who say, look, you are too young for this, or you are too young for that. We should have access to contraceptives and to people who give us these measures, who can say, okay, I understand your plan, I understand how you feel, I will be able to guide you properly. Thankfully, I think ReproLife is doing a good job with that. That's one of the organizations that is doing a good job with that. But of course, there is always more space for more organizations in that aspect.
Yeah, thank you so much, Opeyemi, for all the work that you are doing in the SRHR space with Stand to End Rape and Shake Africa, and just your work as a healthcare professional. Rashidi, we're rounded up now. I want you to just talk about some of your experiences working in doing in advocacy in the so in doing sexual orientation and gender identity advocacy in Nigeria, and how we can position more young people to have an active voice when it comes to SRHR issues. Hello, Rashidi. Hi, Rashidi. Did you hear what I said? Your mic is on mute.
Say the question again for me, thanks. Yeah.
Oh, should I ask again?
Yes.
Oh, so I'm asking, I'm like, your work with the equality triangle, if you can just give us a little bit of your experiences. What your experiences have been so far, what your lessons learned from just working with the equality triangle, and how can young people take a more active space when it comes to SOGI advocacy?
Oh, okay, thank you. So I didn't know where to go with my experience since I'm working at the equality triangle.
Please adjust your camera again, please.
Sorry, yeah. Yeah, good. So I think one of the experience I cherish most from my time at with Equality Triangle is the fact that I am able to speak out as a young person on key issues that affect my humanity. I think it's an experience that comes from the fact that as young people or as a young person, I know what my power is, voice and my visibility. And I believe with that voice and visibility, I am able to contribute to change within the spheres of sexual reproductive health rights. And I always stand by it that if we are going to change anything within the spheres of sexual reproductive health rights for young people, it boils down to visibility and it boils down to voice. And in those two things, it means that we need to have a set of young people that are empowered with the adequate and requisite knowledge and skills for them to take on, you know, this kind of advocacy for sexual reproductive health rights, including those of LGBTI persons. So I think it's about giving people the voice. And I think this is why I love the fact that a whole lot of our advocacy is going onto the media space. So that even if someone doesn't want to come out, you know, in their own, self, and I'm saying in context like, okay, I don't want to make myself visible. I'm visible in the sense that I don't want people to know that I'm the one saying this, thereabout. I can take on, you know, a face that is anonymous, and it still push out voices and, you know, visibility for young people's, you know, sexual reproductive health rights. And I think it's about engaging with a crop of young people who are dissatisfied with the status quo around sexual reproductive health rights and are willing to stake their voices, their visibility, transform these two things into power to claim their sexual reproductive health rights. But then they need to be given the necessary skills, information, and other things for them to champion their cause. And that is why I like I like it when I see, you know, capacity strengthening forums targeted at young people building their sexual reproductive health rights skills and information, as well as advocacy and activism power to be able to champion these causes. So at Equality Triangle, I think this is what my experience have taught me, that my voice and my visibility are the power that I need to make my life better and to contribute to the change that I want to see in terms of human rights protection for vulnerable and marginalized persons, as well as realizing, you know, the sexual reproductive health rights for young people, irrespective of their sexual orientation or gender identity.
Thank you so much, Rashidi. Thank you so much for your contribution. My final question is for Emma. Emma is, like I said, she's the moderator of Love Matters Naija, and she engages a lot with our audience. All our SRHR knowledge, she tries to make it as practical, as concise, as very relatable to our audience. She does an amazing job. So Emma, what are the lessons you've learned from your time as moderator? Do you have any recommendations on how young people can take up space in SRHR advocacy?
Thanks, Harry. It's pertinent to just drum again on what other speakers have said. Opeyemi noted it, Franklin noted it, Rashidi also noted it. There is knowledge gap that needs to be filled. There's still a lot of knowledge gap amongst young people. Being adequately equipped with the information that they need for themselves to get tools, to enable them proceed with protecting their own sexual health and sexual rights. But the sum of it all is really that if we throw enough on the wall, something is bound to rub off. You have a white wall. You throw a tomato at it every day, one tomato every day. At the end of the year, you would have a red wall. So we have to keep just telling these things like it is, tell it like it is really to these young people, and continue to advocate for the necessary institutions and agencies and support and tools that they need. So on our space, what we do is deliver that information, and ensure that the partners that we work with are readily available to assist these young people in providing the tools and the information that they need. Young people themselves, as they learn, we expect and we encourage them to also be the sounding board for others. Be the sounding board for your peers. Be able to take up space because you know that this is real. You have applied it to your own life practically, and seeing how efficient it worked, seeing how productive it was, you can then tell others about it. But beyond just telling young people to take up space, we also need to empower them to take up that space, and that's where we have organizations and government bodies and people who serve as mentors to guide and coach them into how to do advocacy, take up that space, on advocacy platforms, use social tools and all of these, media platforms to be able to make your voice heard. Just like Rashidi, talked about, you have to be able to use those beneficially to your advantage. So at the moment, inbox, we have a lot of people who come and a lot of young people who really don't have the kind of power that everybody else has. Maybe some people use Facebook free mode, which only allows for you to do that at a certain time. But how are social platforms like Facebook and Twitter also enabling young people to use platforms for the good and ensure that they have data protection or data safety when they do these things? And these are, areas which we also need to explore. Are young people financially sound to make use of social media spaces? And if they're not, what are tools that can be provided? How can we leverage on what exists in these social spaces to enable them use these platforms to make their voices heard while also being protected? So these are the things we encourage inbox. We do the best that we can to talk to them and then encourage them to be the sounding board. Then also encourage them to use the tools that they have currently to expand the reach, knowing that it has a ripple effect. And as many people as come on board and take up that space, voices will be heard and changes will be made.
Thank you so much, Emma. That was a very good way to break down what we do and areas we feel that not just the private, not just the non-NGO sector, but even the private sector and the social media platforms. Everybody has a role to play when it comes to, SRHR advocacy and how we can make, young people have access to these rights and know how to take up space. Thank you so much to my wonderful panelists. This has been such a great conversation. Like I said, we decided that because it's International Youth Day and we're talking about young people taking action, it was important for us at Love Matters Naija to also be a part of the conversation and seek out ways through which young people can be active in getting their sexual and reproductive health rights. It's been a great conversation. If you watched us live on Facebook, thank you for joining us. Our website is lovematters.ng. On Twitter, we are Love Matters NG, and on Instagram, we're Love Matters Naija _. Thank you to Emma, to Franklin, to Opeyemi, and to Rashidi. This has been such great conversations. We will also provide more information on our panelists. So in case you want to find out more about the work that they're doing in their various spaces, we'll have that information for you. Thank you so much for watching our live, and until we see you next time. Bye.